Question 6. What have you learnt about technologies from the process of constructing this product? Overall, I use 3 hardware products. I use the Canon PowerShot G9 camera to shoot my photos for my music magazine. I use my iPhone 4 to take the photos for my preliminary task school magazine. And I use my 11-inch MacBook Air. I used my MacBook laptop because from the preliminary task I used the school computers and they were really slow and they wouldn't load anything quickly enough. I also really like working on Macs and I'm really comfortable with the software on that. So I learned for my preliminary tasks that it would be quicker and more efficient for me to use my MacBook for my music magazine, as it doesn't take as long a time for things to load on my MacBook as it did on the school computers. So on my Mac I used Pages, Keynote, Photoshop, and I also went online and used online websites such as Powtoons and Prezi on there. On the school computers I used Microsoft Word, Publisher and Excel. I used Word to create the questionnaire for my music magazine. I used Publisher to create my preliminary task school magazine. I used Excel to collect the data and results from my questionnaire, and I created graphs on there and then I analysed them on PowerPoint. To edit all of the pictures and to create my music magazine, I use the software Photoshop. For all of the images of Phoebe throughout the magazine, I use the same steps to edit the photos of her. So I duplicated the layer of the image and turned one of the layers into black and white, and then changed the opacity of the black and white layer to 80%. I then changed the second layer to the filter soft light to make the image look more grungy. To change Phoebe's hair colour, I added another layer on top of those two and made the whole image more pink. I then added a black layer on top of that and rubbed out Phoebe's hair to reveal the pink layer underneath, so that just her hair was pink. To add text, I used the text tool. To insert images that I'd already taken into Photoshop, I'd drag the file from the original folder and drag it down to the small icon at the bottom of the page. And then it would pop up in Photoshop. I'd press Command A and then Command C and then Command V, so I'd copy and paste it into the document in Photoshop that I wanted it to be in. To cut out around the pictures of Ella on the contents page on the top right hand side, I used the lasso tool to cut around her, and then did the same thing where I copied and pasted her onto the contents page. To add the Polaroid pictures, I found some old Polaroid pictures and then scanned them into the computer. I then used the magnetic lasso tool to cut around them and then copied and pasted them into the contents page. To insert the arrows, I drew arrows separately on a piece of paper and then scanned them in and used the magnetic lasso tool to copy and paste them into the contents page. To create the editorial pillars, I used the rectangle tool, and then I changed the colour of the rectangle with what colour I wanted my editorial pillars to be. For the tape for the advert, you went on a separate piece of paper on plain white A4 paper and cut out some tape and stuck it on, and then I scanned it in and used the magnetic lasso tool to cut around it. For the Converse logo at the bottom of the page, I just went into Google and found a clear white Converse logo and dragged it into Photoshop. I used the software Keynote on my MacBook to analyse the front cover's contents page and double page spread of music magazines. I used the text tool and I inserted shapes into the slides to analyse and point out what I liked and disliked about each design. On the school computers, I used Microsoft Word to create the questionnaire for my music magazine, for my market research. I used the text tool and I used the shape tool to insert boxes for the open-ended questions. I used Microsoft Publisher to create my preliminary task. I used the shape tool, text tool to insert images and type into my contents page and front page. On the school computers, I also used Microsoft Excel to gather the results from my questionnaire and to create graphs. There's a step-by-step guide of how I did that in my blog diary. I added percentages and labels to make it clear, to make my graphs clearer, and it helped me to analyse and see clearly what my results were. I use several different websites in this process. I use Powtoons, which is quite similar to PowerPoint, but it's self-playing, so it's like a small animation of slides. To do this, I just use the text tool to add text, and then if I wanted to put that on my media blog, I'd use the embed tool and embed it into my blog. I also used Prezi, which is also quite similar to PowerPoint, but it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing, and it's got a lot more design choices. To put this onto my blog, I also used the embed tool. I also used Animoto, which is like a small mini slideshow where you can add music to the background. And I use this to present my different music magazine front covers, double page spreads, contents pages, adverts that inspired me, and there you can see those on my blog. And then the main website I used was Weebly, which is where my blog is situated for my whole media coursework. I use this to record what I did every media coursework lesson. There are loads of tools you can use. I inserted text, I embedded videos, I inserted images. You can see how my magazine progressed and developed throughout the year.